Scott and Walker are such large buildings that it's really difficult to do anything with them, and we have to spend a lot of time planning ahead. We think we can get some additional years of service out of Scott and Walker, but we want to keep them upgraded as best we can. So we know we're going to have to do some projects in the next few years. Taking out the built-in furniture and upgrading the furniture gives us furniture that's similar to what students have in Harrell or some of the other suite style living options, and that gives them a chance to reconfigure the room with a lot more flexibility than you can now. And I think that'd make a big difference in the quality of living in Walker. Scott, it's been such a great building for Western. It's been here for so many years. Anything we can do to keep the old girl in service.
The old girl.
Mary Scott has been very good to Western Carolina, and we're going to have to do some work on it, I think, just to keep it in service. And then we're also trying to plan ahead. At the end of 10 years, I hope we have a pretty good, plan for how we're going to replace Scott and Walker. The master plan is, we're working on the master plan right now, and we hope that we'll be able financially and enrollment wise to replace Scott and Walker in about 10-15 years. So we're starting to move in that direction as well, but in the short term we're still going to have to keep some work going, upgrades and new paint, new carpet, new furniture, that kind of thing. Eventually,
Okay.
I think we are talking about looking at this site. Scott and Walker are so close together, I think they're 20 feet apart. If you start taking down one of them, odds are you're going to be taking down the other one too. So coordinating that. Would we replace it bed for bed? I don't think we will. I think we have about 1,200 to 1,300 beds between the two buildings right now. I don't know we'd have that much concentration in a replacement. And I don't think we'd do high rises if we had a chance to replace them. Basically what you're looking at with the room rate proposals this year is a base increase of 3% kind of across the board to reflect increases that we're expecting in employee costs. Let me back up. The room rates support the residential living department, and the residential living department receives no funding from the state of North Carolina. We also don't receive any tuition funding. So everything that has to do with the residence hall system is paid for out of the room rates. So all of the employees, we pay our water, we pay our sewer, we pay the electricity. All of those expenses are factored into the room rate. So we're seeing this year a pretty significant increase in electrical costs. We're seeing increase in water and sewer. We're also trying to do some energy efficiency projects to start replacing exciting things like flush valves in toilets so they use less water. All of the regular maintenance activity we do. We're also seeing increased costs with personnel. So if the state decides next summer in the state budget to pass a raise for all state employees, we'll have to cover that out of the room rate for the housing and residential living employees. We've also seen over the last couple of years increased costs related to benefits, retirement benefits, health insurance, those kind of things also factor into that base increase of about 3%. The biggest freshman class, according to our records, we had a monster freshman class back in the 70s of about 1,800 students, and it was right after Vietnam War ended, and apparently one year they had a crazy big freshman class. But yeah, lately, the last couple of years have been right there, second, third, fourth largest freshman classes in our modern times. But we're planning to keep growing, but we want to grow smart. We don't want to just throw the doors open. We don't want to make situations worse with course scheduling, with availability of courses. So we're trying to grow, but grow smart, grow by 50, 25 a year, not hundreds and hundreds or, God forbid, thousands. One of the things that I think is interesting to keep in mind about Western Carolina University's history is WCU went about 30 years without doing any major renovation or construction project on the dorms. And in the last 8 years, we've replaced or renovated or upgraded over half of the 4,000 beds on campus. Mm-hmm. And I just really feel it's important that we finish that other half, that we find a way to continue renovating, upgrading as best we can. But going 30 years without any major project really kind of put us behind in upgrading what's available housing-wise. When we're working with high school students and their families about recruiting them to come to Western, one of the things we hear is a lot of concern from families and students about the value. So they're not looking for luxurious dorms to go, as a freshman and live in their first year. But they want nice accommodations. They want safe accommodations. And so we're really trying to stay on that edge between value and amenities. And so upgrading the buildings is important, but at the same time, we want to keep them really affordable. And one of the things I think students may not realize is we do look around the rest of North Carolina to the schools that we compete with for enrollment and look to see what are they charging for freshman housing, for upper class housing. We also have a philosophy here educationally that with the residence halls, some universities in North Carolina have built apartments on campus. We're never going to do that. We want students to start with us in a traditional residence hall like Scott, Walker, Buchanan, then move to a suite, have a little more freedom, have a little more personal responsibility for cleaning a bathroom and doing those sort of things.
Students don't like to do.
Well, but, and then frankly, we want them to move off campus and have that apartment living experience while they're still a student and have all the support systems at Western. So we're not trying to house everybody, and we don't want to compete with off-campus apartments by building our own apartments. This year, the legislature and the governor passed a budget in North Carolina, and one of the things it included was for next year, it mandated that the university system could not increase tuition on in-state students. But they also mandated for some of the UNC campuses that we increase out-of-state tuition by 6%. Some of the campuses were told to increase their out-of-state tuition by 12%. And a couple of them were 0%, just like in-state students. Western Carolina University was a 6% campus, and so we've passed are planning for a 6% increase in out-of-state tuition next year. Year to year, Western passes budget proposals and tuition and fee proposals. Our tuition, we approve that at the campus level and the Board of Trustees. That goes on to the UNC system, and the Board of Governors approves all the tuitions for all of the UNC campuses. But then it goes on to the legislature, and ultimately the legislature and the governor are the final authority on tuition increases.
Okay. And so if we're looking at students, obviously this is for students. Mm-hmm. Students might not see that, but it's for students. So
sure.
Prospective students that are already here, kind of like what would be if you had to talk to these students and they were kind of all angry, not angry, but if they were like asking you like very specifically, like kind of give justification for like why all of these increases are important, just as an overall perspective.
I think no one likes having to pay more. However, we are entrusted as a university with significant resources in our buildings and our facilities, and we have an obligation to do our best to take care of them for the future and for the students who will be coming to Western. And unfortunately, that sometimes means we have to do increases just to keep up with the rising costs that we're facing.
But it's the idea of strengthening the community going forward.
I think we always want to, as we're doing these things, look for ways that we can give our current students a value for what is happening, whether that's enhanced, furniture so they can configure their room how they want to, or enhanced programming, enhanced service at the health center. Whatever we can do, we're always looking for ways that we can do more to have an impact and be supportive of students and their academic goals.